Hey Hodies, welcome to my channel. My name is hautemesstom and thank you so much for clicking on today's video. This is going to be a bonus video this week and I'm just trying to get this out as fast as I can. I'm going to be doing a pretty in-depth review of the About Face The Performer Foundation, but I'm going to try to do it as succinctly as possible, which is something that I struggle with here on this platform. If you watch any of my videos, you'll know that. This foundation in the hype cycle, it's past its prime, which is totally fine. Thing is, there are people who are still interested in hearing my thoughts on it, so that's what I'm here to do. I actually did a poll on my Instagram. You can follow me there at hautemesstom, and of the majority of people, like not just a little bit, like the vast majority of people still wanted a video on this, so I'm here to provide. I like to talk about why I'm doing the review, if I purchased it, or also if it came in PR, because I don't always accept PR. I'm not someone who gets tagged a lot in things whenever it comes to what people are interested in, but people seem to be very interested in my thoughts on this foundation as a review, and that's why I purchased it. If I wasn't a YouTuber and not many people asked me to review it, I probably wouldn't. But I'm fulfilling my end of the duty. I bought this for a review, and so now I'm going to review it for you. So my expectations of this foundation were kind of like nothing. I didn't really look into it. I just saw that a lot of people were interested in hearing my thoughts and opinions on it. So that is, I had no expectations going into this, so I wasn't really sure what the brand was promising as far as this foundation goes. I was just like, I'm gonna buy it, I'm gonna see what it's all about, test it out. And I find that as a reviewer, going in with like less expectations is kind of fun because it's like, I don't really know how it's going to work out, but I also don't know how it's supposed to work. Because what if it works really beautifully, not in the way the brand says it's supposed to? Because sometimes that happens and it's like nice, because if I thought it was one thing going into it, my brain might get stuck on that. Sometimes it's really hard to break those thought cycles. Let's talk a little bit about just the look and the feel of it. This is a $22 foundation and you get 1.08 ounces of product, which is a little bit more than the standard when it comes to foundations. I think a lot of foundations, if they do more than an ounce, it tends to be 1.08. I don't know why that is. And it is shaped just like a lot of the other products from About Face. It's square and it has a doe foot applicator. And the doe foot applicator is pretty interestingly shaped. It's like more round than doe foot applicators I've seen. It has like this curve to it here. There's not a place for the product to pool, which sometimes happens, but what I will say is that I felt very confident in this doe foot to hold the product. I didn't feel like it was a very messy doe foot. I know if you're a makeup lover, you have bought a product that had a doe foot and stopper situation that was just a huge mess, and this isn't like that at all. Do I wish it wasn't a doe foot applicator? I do, because I feel like whenever we get into territory, whenever we're applying foundations with a doe foot applicator, the connotation there feels full coverage, like it's a dual product, like it should be a concealer as well as a foundation. And I don't know that this has enough coverage to be a concealer for a lot of people, because a lot of people tend to go higher coverage for their concealer for obvious reasons. Not everyone, but like I wouldn't, if you were buying this as a concealer, I don't know that that would be worth your while if you like full coverage. Some of the claims are that it's vegan and it's cruelty free. There are 45 shades of this product. I was on Ulta's website to get some information about this, as well as the About Face website. And what I found is that it is considered clean by Ulta's standards. I don't personally buy into clean beauty, but I know some people do. And if you align with Ulta's view of clean beauty, then this would be a foundation that you might like. But as always, with anything, even if you're not into clean beauty, you know, I always think it's worth checking out the ingredients, which is what I did next. What I do is I go to a couple different websites and I look up all the ingredients. I also look at the list, and I've been doing this enough now where a lot of times I can look at the list and I know a lot of those things and a lot of what those do. And I like to pull out like highlights. So not ever here to vilify ingredients, because if there's an ingredient there, it probably is doing something. But a lot of websites out there will try to be like, this ingredient's bad for you. And that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to like learn a little bit about it, since it is product I'm covering my entire face with. Eyeshadow, they don't have that same intrigue. It's something about putting it all over my face that I'm like, I probably should know what's in there. That's a me thing. When I looked at the ingredients list, nothing really stuck out to me. Like, I recognized a lot of the ingredients, and the ones that I didn't really recognize, they didn't seem to be anything like extravagant. So there are a lot of humectants in this. A lot of ingredients in here that are really good for dry skin. When we get to the more of the review and my thoughts on it, that will make a lot of sense. Now, there were a couple oil control ingredients, but they were really, really, really low on the list. If you don't know this already, when you look at an ingredient list, whatever's at the top, that's the highest concentration of what's in there. And whenever you get closer to the bottom of the list, that's what there's less and less and less of. So I did say that this was full of humectants. So what humectants do, if you don't know, humectants kind of like take moisture from the environment that you're in and put that moisture into your skin. So that could be really good for people with dry skin if you don't live in a like dry climate, because if you live in a dry climate, then it kind of does the opposite and kind of like sucks the moisture out. So like maybe this might not be great in like a desert situation, but you know, obviously I can't speak to that. I don't live in a desert climate. And then lastly, I just want to mention one more ingredient before we move along. This ingredient was in the middle of the list and it was mica. Mica is in a lot of sparkly eyeshadows. It's in a lot of highlighters. It's really reflective, and depending on how it's used, sometimes it can make your skin look sparkly, especially when it's in a foundation. A foundation I previously reviewed was the Makeup by Mario foundation last year, and that had a lot of mica in it. It was much higher on the ingredient list in that foundation than it was in this one, but I just want to make you aware in case you don't want a foundation that has mica in it, which I would understand because there's potential there for it to enhance texture just because of the nature of sparkly things is that they enhance texture. It just is what it is. Let me actually tell you my thoughts and feelings on it. Let's get into application first. I always try applying my foundations 3 different ways: sponge, brush, and then a finger application. So we'll start with the brush application. And the first time I ever used it was on camera with a brush, and footage that you will eventually see here is going to be from that application. I really think it works really well with the brush and it blends out really beautifully. I don't feel like it was really streaky or really wanted to not work well with the brush. And I felt like the coverage that it gave me was like a nice medium coverage, maybe like medium light, but more close to medium than like a light or sheer coverage. And what I will say is it looked really natural on my skin, except it looked wet. And that was just the case with all 3 application methods, except for one time. I did use the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base for this brush application that you're seeing on the screen right now. And I was curious if maybe that primer was the reason that it looked wet. Not really. That's not really the case of what happened. Let's move on to the sponge. The sponge I liked as well. And because of the doe foot, I never was applying more. I think I applied about the same amount of dots to my face in all 3 application methods. And I felt like because of the nature of a sponge and I was using a damp sponge, it looked the most wet of all of the finishes, but it did blend it out beautifully. It really worked for that. I just, sometimes with the water in the sponge or the dampness of the sponge, it will often give me a more luminous effect or finish to a foundation unless it's like a completely matte foundation. But like I always feel like whenever I'm using a luminous foundation and then I'm using a sponge to blend it out, it does always just kind of look more wet even once it's set. I don't know what that's about. I don't know. It makes sense, but it also is like, does it? I wouldn't hesitate to apply it with a sponge. Sponges are not my favorite way to apply foundation. I do prefer a brush. The only reason is because I always forget to dampen a beauty blender or a beauty sponge whenever I'm doing foundation. I had to walk up a flight of stairs to dampen my beauty sponge. I often just forgo that. And then I did apply it with my hands, and then this time I did apply it over a matte primer in this application, and it also happened during the sponge application. In the center of my forehead, I have a lot of texture and like some larger pores, and maybe something happened to my head because there's this one divot in my forehead that is like a little bit deeper. It looks like it could be a scar, but I don't know what it's from. Like it's been there for as long as I've known, and like ever since I've been wearing makeup. If I put a foundation on that has some stuff in it, and I haven't quite figured out what the ingredient is, sometimes it will look bad right there. And unfortunately, this foundation did fix itself when I would spray myself with Fix Plus, but it was the worst when I applied it with my hands. But that also could have been the mattifying primer. And what I will say is when I applied it over the mattifying primer, it looked the most skin-like, but it still leaned dewy, which is okay. I probably should tell you what my preferences are as far as foundation goes. What I'm looking for out of a foundation is not really coverage. I like lighter coverage. I like something that has a soft filter effect, something that is blurring. So that's what I'm looking for out of a product. More I'm looking for blur than I am for coverage. I will take more coverage as long as I get what I want out of it. This coverage was nice. I didn't really find like a soft focus filter effect from it. We'll talk about them in a second, but from the brand's website, it seems like it's supposed to be a skin caring kind of foundation. And I find a lot of times with skin caring foundations, like there's not a lot of that blur. And because I think a lot of the blur comes from silicones, and this happens to be silicone free. I don't know if they were aiming to do that specifically, but there were no silicones in the ingredients as far as I could tell. When I applied it with my hands, I didn't really like it. Didn't feel like it wanted to apply that way. I felt like it took like a lot more work to blend it into my skin. A lot of times whenever the benefit of applying a foundation with your hands is that you get the warmth of your hands and like pressing it into your skin to make it look more one. And oftentimes with a finger application, you get lighter coverage. It could be the fact that I just had too much foundation on to apply it with my hands. But honestly, since it has a doe foot applicator, I think the implication there is to try to keep you from having to touch your face. It didn't recommend a brush or a sponge or your fingers on the website, because sometimes there are foundations where you like look at the brand specifically tells you use it with a brush, use it with a sponge, use it with your fingers. About Face didn't really say anything about how they suggest to apply. I think I did it, maybe it was an 8 to 12 hour wear test. You'll see in the footage that's showing over top of my face right now. So I got ready in the morning, and then I think I had it on for like 8 or 9 hours, but I do a check-in in the middle of the day. So first applied, it looked like it did every other day. I did try a different primer. What I've learned about this foundation doesn't matter the primer, it's gonna look the way it's going to look. It doesn't matter about powder, because even after powdering, it's gonna look the way it's gonna look. So at the 4-hour mark, I didn't feel like it looked bad. I was wearing a mask that day on and off, depending on where I was. I do feel, to its credit, it didn't really get indentations from the mask. And by the end of the day, I do feel as though either it wore off beautifully or it like didn't really wear off at all. Like I couldn't really tell on my face like if it had like faded at all. My face just looked really oily. I have oily skin. No matter what the foundation is, normally at the end of the day, I'm gonna be looking oily if I haven't touched up. And when I do these wear tests, I don't touch up. I don't often actually leave my house to do my wear tests because I just don't leave my house that often. But when I was out and about, it was, it was nice to give it that kind of wear test. But what I will say in this footage, I have coffee all over my face from the checkpoint on, which was great. That people saw me with just coffee all up in my mustache, which is love that. And then I do feel like once I put powder on it, it came back to the level of dewiness that it was at the beginning of the day. Here's where I'm at with this foundation. On me, it looks just wet, and it doesn't really look oily until my oils break through, but it's just kind of wet. I just feel like I look wet. That's okay, but it's not the look I'm going for. It reminds me a lot of the Makeup by Mario foundation, but I want to say to its credit, this feels much better finessed than the Makeup by Mario foundation. I feel like whatever the Makeup by Mario foundation was trying to do, About Face did it better. Like it gives me the same vibes, and it does it, I think, a little more effortlessly than the Makeup by Mario. The Makeup by Mario, I feel like I remember the formula being thick, not being heavy on the skin, but this formula is incredibly lightweight. And I do think that perhaps formulas with mica in it, doesn't matter where the mica falls, are maybe just like not great for my oily skin because it just ends up looking shiny. Now, I do love a dewy finish in a foundation. It took to powder well. I did not spray my face often when I was trying out this foundation because I didn't want to encourage it to look wet faster. But the other thing was I often needed to spray my face because it was getting caught up in my texture on the center of my forehead. It just wasn't a perfect foundation for me. But what I will say, some things to this foundation's benefit is that I've heard some of my friends with dry skin have like really love it. Khaki has been loving it. Like she has had the polar opposite experience of this foundation than I have. And the thing is, I don't want you to walk away from this review thinking that I hate this foundation, because I don't. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's like decidedly not for me. We're talking like still comparing the Makeup by Mario to this one. I think the Makeup by Mario foundation is a bad foundation. I don't see a lot of use value in that foundation. I feel like a lot of people who aren't me and have the skin type that I have will get a lot of value out of this, and it's super cost effective at $22. Another thing to this credit, there's 45 shades of this foundation, and it includes an olive shade at each depth level. So there's a fair olive, a light olive, medium tan, and deep olives. And olive skin tones often get left out of the conversation when we talk about undertones. So it's really exciting to see a brand cater to that undertone. And also, if we do get olive undertones, oftentimes it's only light olive tones that we see, or like light to medium olive tones that we see. So it's really great to see a brand put olive tones, including incredibly deep shades. I like to try to keep my foundation collection to a minimum if I can. And I try to keep 4. I'm thinking about making it 5 foundations in my rotation. This does not make the cut for me. What I'm looking for out of a foundation for me to keep it. That is a bit of a bummer. I do tend, and this is just full honesty moment, I do tend to prefer foundations that are higher end or luxury. This doesn't feel like a cheap foundation at all. There are definitely foundations that I have tried that are on the higher end and like luxury scale that feel a lot like this. So I think that they did a really great job at this price point doing something that is really cool. And I think it's pretty innovative for the foundation for what it is, especially for it. I don't know, again, I don't know if they purposefully made it clean and silicone free. I think for all of those things, because I like foundations with silicone in them, for it to lack all of that and still perform really well, I think it looked good on my skin minus that wetness. Like I don't even really think it enhanced my texture at all except for like right there. So maybe if you have like acne scarring and just a lot of things like that on your face, this might not be a good foundation for you. Again, the mica in it will probably enhance that, and so it just might not be a good fit for you. So I would avoid this foundation maybe in those scenarios. I think that people that would have the best success with it are people who have very, very dry skin. I think that this foundation is going to be perfect for you. I forgot to do the claims, so we're going to do that right now. So the claims, this is from About Face's actual website. So, breaking the norm, center stage skin. This cushiony formula is packed with 17 plus skincare ingredients to maintain moisture and help even and smooth skin with every wear. Our skin first hybrid foundation is buildable, breathable, and wearable for up to 12 hours with cake-free, seamless feel and a natural soft focus finish, no matter your ideal level of coverage, optimizing your skin with each wear. Where other foundations leave you wanting, the Performer is made for everyday wear that won't compromise your skin. It moves with you, never more comfortable skin supporting swipe. So I've talked about this in almost every foundation video review, is I don't believe that foundations are skincare. And I don't think that we should look to them for skincare. I don't like mind them having skincare in it. I have big problems with the claims that your skin's going to improve over time using makeup specifically, like makeup with actives in it. If you have skincare, even if you're just using like basic skincare, you're gonna have something on your face. And also if you use a primer, there's gonna be stuff that's on your face already that's gonna prevent this foundation and all of its skincare ingredients from penetrating your skin. So it's like, what's the point of it having skincare? Again, like you sometimes get benefits of it, like like glycerin and humectants like that. Like that's hydrating and it might make the foundation wear and look better over time. It's just, I don't love the promise of like, your skin's gonna look better with each swipe. Or like, I don't love that. I don't love that claim, but I feel like a lot of the other claims in here are like, I feel like it wore well for the time that I wore it. I don't think I wore it for all 12 hours. So it says buildable, breathable, wearable. I did find it to be buildable. Sometimes on the high points of my cheeks, I have more redness than on the other parts of my face. So I put that on, I built it up and it worked really well. You can build it up. I don't know. I would never try wearing it full coverage. I probably wouldn't want to do that with this just because of the finish it has. But if you want to, I think you might be able to achieve it. I think it's like, even in the claims from the brand, a lot of those things are just not for me and what I'm looking for out of a foundation. Like, yeah, longish wearing and like breathable, lightweight. Love that. The rest of the claims, like the skin caring, hydration. Like, I love hydration, but like, I don't think I need that from it. Whatever it's doing to hydrate the skin is doing too much for my oily skin. So yeah, that's the About Face, the Performer foundation. That's how I feel about it. I'm not the be all end all when it comes to this. My friend Colin, I think they reviewed it and they have like medium olive skin, so you could go look to them if you have olive skin. I think Nicolette has it, so I'm gonna link her down below. My friend Ananda has it. I'm trying to think of all the people. Andromeda has the olive. I'm trying to think of people with olive undertones that I've seen try it, so anyone who has an olive undertone could check those creators out just to see if it's working really well for people with olive skin tones. I will leave you with that information down in the description box below. And I think that's where I'm going to wrap up this video. If you happen to be new and you aren't subscribed, I would love to have you subscribe. My channel is mostly focused on loving my makeup collection as it currently is, but with where I'm at on my channel, I do have the privilege of being able to purchase things for review because my channel makes me a little bit of money and I can invest a little bit back into the channel. So this is an example of that. But a lot of my content is about using stuff that I already own. And sometimes I get PR, I get to test new things. So that's the vibe. But ultimately what I'm trying to do here is help you build a habit and help myself build a habit when we're deciding to purchase a makeup for ourselves, that we are making the best decision we possibly can based on what we already have and what we might need or want to fill the gaps. That's what I tried to do here. So if that sounds good to you, please subscribe. Make sure you like this video and share it with anyone you might think that will find this review helpful. I'm on patreon.com and I have memberships here on YouTube. Both give you the same rewards or the same access. So you don't have to be on both. You could do one or the other or neither, because Patreon is certainly optional. Sharing, commenting, liking are great ways to support my channel. Patreon and memberships are just a different way to support my channel. But I do one additional video over there every month, as well as my podcast with Kaki of Kaki Reviews Beauty. We do weekly episodes of our podcast, Dumb Bitch Hour. So you can check that out if you would like as well. So I think that's where I'll leave you, and I will see you in the next video. Yeah, this is about like a little snuck it in here. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember to follow your hope, and you will find me. I'll see you in a video very soon. Go forth, tits out. Bye!